Mr. President.
Senator from Kansas.
Thank you, Mr. President. It was just a couple weeks ago that President Biden asked the nation, he asked Republicans, what are Republicans for? I want to make it clear tonight that I'm for border security, I'm for law and order. I've been to the border 3 times in the past 4 to 5 years, and what I saw there was a crisis. And if I could, I just want to paint just for a minute what that crisis looks like. Having been overseas doing medical mission work, I think I know a humanitarian, a health crisis when I see it. And this was a humanitarian crisis, a health crisis. Thousands of people sleeping underneath a bridge. They just traveled across Mexico for days, maybe weeks, maybe months. And as a physician, I look out there and what did I see? I saw people that were dehydrated, malnourishment, dehydration from diarrhea, from dysentery, scabies, tuberculosis. The Border Patrol was overwhelmed. The doctors were overwhelmed. The nurses, the dentists, everybody was overwhelmed. That's what I would call a humanitarian crisis. One of the biggest humanitarian crises going on, though, is human trafficking. As an obstetrician gynecologist in Kansas, believe it or not, we would have to take care of young women who had been abused from human trafficking. Maybe they had chlamydia, maybe they were having a miscarriage, but I'm just shocked at the amount of human trafficking going on across the border. In 2021, fiscal year 2021, 145,000 unaccompanied minors were apprehended at the southern border. And I want to emphasize, this is young girls and young boys that are being abused and sold into sex slavery. Of that 145,000, about a third of the minors that were released to a sponsor we lost contact with. Are we turning children over to human trafficking? I think that's what we're all concerned about. So I think certainly there is indeed a humanitarian crisis, a health crisis there. Just to talk a little bit more about the border, and we'll put that up here. Microphone. Look at the statistics from last year alone. 2 million people were apprehended at the border last year. 2 million people. Do you realize that there's 14 states in this country with less than 2 million people? And beyond that, as I spoke with the Border Patrol there, they told me for every person they apprehended, 2 got across the lines. So probably an additional 4 million people came across, a total of 6 million. There are 30 states in our country with a population of 6 million people. Furthermore, what we were doing is making the cartel rich. What I was told by Texas Rangers and Border Patrol officers is the cartel was making $3,000 to $9,000 per person. And of course, if it was some person maybe from the Middle East, a little bit harder to get across the border, they were getting $20,000 to $30,000 a person as well. I haven't talked yet about the national security crisis. I think we've all seen the films and the reports of single adult males being flown on nighttime flights across the nation, being released. Migrants using arrest warrants as forms of identification. I think, America is not stupid. We see what's going on. I want to talk about fentanyl for a second. So probably 95% of the fentanyl coming into this country is made in China, coming across our southern border. An average month of fentanyl being seized at the border was over 800 pounds. That's almost a half a ton of fentanyl. That would kill 200 million people. This is a drug that if a drug dog sniffs it, it kills them, it makes them stop breathing. Most normal people, if they just had a small amount in it, it would make them stop breathing. This is the national security crisis going on. More people dying from fentanyl overdose, young people dying from fentanyl overdose than from COVID. And that's just part of the national security crisis. I kind of started off this discussion saying what I'm for, that I'm for border security. And I want to tell you how we can fix the problems there. And these are solutions every American knows. DHS several years ago came up with a $25 billion budget to to control the border. I couldn't think of a better way to invest $25 billion of American dollars. To build the wall where it needs to be built, to finish the wall, to put the gates in that are sitting there rusting away. We could start with that. We, of course, need more boots on the ground, more technology, more drug dogs. But $25 billion would significantly improve the situation on the southern border. Next, the administration can fully and in good faith enforce the Remain in Mexico policy and end catch and release practices. And finally this, of course, work with Mexico. Let's go back and ask Mexico to help us again to control the security on that border. Ask them to work on their southern border, which is much easier to control, and of course work with our Border Patrol on our common border. This is a crisis that America sees. Every town hall I do, someone's going to bring it up. Every one of them, without any question, someone's going to ask me. They say, why does President Biden want this crisis? And I mean, well, what do you mean he wants it? They say, well, obviously he wants this crisis because it would be so easy to fix. So if we see the problem, we know the solution. That would be my question for President Biden. Do you have the will to fix this crisis? Thank you, Mr. President. I yield back.